Welcome to Executive Exchange Radio with moderator Joe Cristiano, America's corporate exorcist. Hosted by Dr. Jennifer Beeman and George Gutierrez, trusted advisors to chief executives and business leaders across the nation. If you would like to add to the conversation, call 646-652-4620.
Welcome, everyone, to Executive Exchange Radio. I'm Joe Cristiano. I'll be your moderator today. And with us we have George Gutierrez of the BMOC Group and also Command Sergeant Major Stephen Smith. And on our last broadcast, what we did is we talked about the 6 principles of persuasion. We only covered 2 of them, and the first 2 were reciprocity and consistency. That's almost self-explanatory. Today we're going to get a few that are a little bit less clear. We're going to be talking about scarcity, authority, liking, and consensus, and how managers need to understand these concepts to build a team that's on the same path to enrich not only the corporation itself, but enrich the jobs of the people who are performing the tasks that need the organization to thrive. So, George, are you there?
I'm here. Hello.
Oh, welcome back. Well, let's talk about scarcity. Now, that one eludes me. What does scarcity have to do with a principle of persuasion?
Okay, so let's put the whole thing into context. So this is really a conversation about leadership.
Right.
So when we look at the science of persuasion, what we're really talking about is 6 shortcuts that if we use them the way they're intended to be used, it will allow those that we're engaging with to be persuaded to our way of thinking. Okay, so there's a danger with that, particularly if the motivation isn't well grounded in the perspective of adding value to other people. Okay, so what I mean by that? What I mean by that is if I'm a smooth communicator, I can sell you anything. And I've often said that if you can package it, make it look good, you can sell it, whether the person needs it or not, right? And I think we have all experienced that. So when we look at this principle of scarcity, we really have to be careful how that is applied. So the way that the video puts it is you basically create the illusion that you're taking something away, and by doing so it creates a demand for that thing that you're taking away. So the example that is presented on the video is about the Concorde. If you guys, if you're old enough, you remember the Concorde, and when the Concorde could travel from New York to France in a couple of hours, if I remember correctly, or something near to that.
Right.
Well, the problem with that was that it was $10, a trip. $10,000 a trip. So it became to the point to where they were having trouble filling up, the seat or selling the tickets. So they come up and they said, we're going to cancel all the flights on the Concorde. Starting on, in a couple of months. And I'm paraphrasing a little bit. I'm not quite citing the video exactly the way he intended it, but the idea is still the same. So that it went into the marketplace by saying we're going to shut down the flights. We only got, a couple of months to do it. So when the public who could afford to travel back and forth to that destination, when they saw that was taken away, then they began to buy the tickets. And all of a sudden, when the idea of I want to become scarce and this is going to be hard to get, then everybody wanted it even more than before.
Yeah. Now, how do we apply that principle though to managing an organization the principle of scarcity. Could you give us an example of that, please?
Yeah, I can, but Steve, were you able to hear that definition?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yeah, okay. So how can we apply the principle of scarcity in an organizational environment?
I think the simplest way to describe this or project it, if you are a manager or a leader, and George said it, this is a leadership topic, three things need to happen. First and foremost, your employees, your subordinates, whatever the case may be, need to have a clear and defined mission or end state. And with that, they need to understand what the common goal is, and they have to get on board. So if you provide motivation, direction, and purpose, that way they understand what they have to do. What I've found both in the military and the civilian world is a lot of managers, they don't know how to project that. Everyone knows what the company's mission is, or their mission statement, but no one quite understands how to get there. So the role of the manager, and I'm speaking from a military background, the role of the manager or the supervisor or the commander is to provide purpose, motivation, and direction, all centered around that mission statement, that goal, or the end state goal.
So Joe, let's take that and break that down into a specific activity that we can make ourselves scarce with. So let's just take programs that are designed to incentivize good performance from the employees. Okay, so let's take safety for an example. If we want to make sure that everybody's wearing their PPEs, their
personal protection,
personal protective equipment. Let's just say eye protection. And what we do is, if you're able to go for 90 days and you never get caught, or if you're always found wearing your PPE, then we are going to give you a $50 gift certificate so that you can go and take your family to a restaurant. Well, what will happen is after a while, the same people, keep getting rewarded because they're the only ones paying attention to that incentive.
Right.
So then, if you say, look, we're taking that reward away, that incentive is not working. The same people are always getting it. We're still getting people with, getting injuries, in their eyes because they're not wearing the eye protection. So that's just going to be a benefit or an incentive that goes away. And unless we can see improved performance throughout the next 90 days, that is going to go away. Well, all of a sudden, now you've created a competition. And you've announced that the same people keep winning the $50 certificate, but it's going to go away altogether. So you'll see more people then, because that will become scarce. That resource will become scarce. You'll see participation increasing because you're going to have more people wanting that particular distinction of actually having won that particular thing. The same thing goes with Employee of the Month. If you have a good Employee of the Month program to where the employees are identified, with great performance and, they get incentivized by having their own parking spot right next to the CEO right up front. So there's this Employee of the Month that is recognized, their picture is taken, is putting out by the board, and everybody gets to see who that person is. They get this parking spot, they get, and maybe other things. All of a sudden, you announce you're going to take that away because people are not participating. The idea is that by having that resource become scarce, it incentivizes, or in other words, it doesn't really incentivize, but it persuades other people to participate in that particular program.
Okay. Well, it's interesting, the Employee of the Month program, and I have been in many companies and many jobs where they had an Employee of the Month, and it's never been a success in any place I've been to, been worked at. Most times it's the same person who gets it. Most people don't, like you say, they don't participate at all. They don't care. And in fact, the person who wins it really doesn't want it after a while. They don't want to be the person whose name is up there and everyone looks at them like, oh, like they're different, like they're, smooching up to management or something like that. So it almost became a disincentive to win, So people were dropping out of the process.
No, that's correct, because then there's sort of a persona that you get judged as being because you achieved that particular recognition. But what if you say, we're taking Employee of the Month completely away, and we're just going to have Employee of the Quarter. So once a quarter, we're going to compete, to see who becomes the Employee of the Quarter. And then not only do you get, your parking spot, but you also get a $500 gift certificate that you can spend anywhere else. Now you've upped the desire to participate in this pool, because even if you don't want your picture taken, I think I can use $500 just about any time.
Right.
So people are incentivized, to participate in those kinds of programs if the remuneration, is worthwhile going after and achieving.
Let me turn things around, and this may be a very unfair comment, so I'll be the first to admit it. What if we turn that around? Not have an Employee of the Month, have a Supervisor or Manager of the Month.
So I don't think that's too far fetched, and I think so. First of all, you have to have the wherewithal to implement those programs. So what you do is you tie the employee performance, those that achieve that particular recognition, then that goes into the resume. So when you go back to evaluate them on a consistent basis, that could be one of the things that will get it promoted. Yeah. But if you really want to then grow leaders, and you want to say, we have an Employee of the Quarter and we have a Supervisor of the Quarter, you can have both. Okay. So the elements of that competitions are different. So for example, if you really want to become the Supervisor of the Quarter, then one of the things that we're going to measure against is employee engagement. Yeah. So the employees actually, and Joe, you and I have had this conversation before, the employees actually get to do a performance review on that particular supervisor, and see how they sort of fare in terms of how they're being seen.
Yeah. Is not a program such as the Employee of the Month almost condescending in a way where you're delegitimizing, the quality, where everyone is equal in an organization, except we have different jobs. A supervisor has a different job than the technician on the, on the work line, for example. But there's no one higher or lower. I mean, we're all in this game together, because usually if the supervisor takes a vacation for 6 years, no one will miss him. But if that technician on the line is gone for 3 hours, the line shuts down. So you got to ask yourself, who's more important? And I often think that sometimes these programs lessen the importance of the employee, when in so many cases the employee is the job is infinitely more important than the overall monitoring job of the supervisor himself. And I'll bet many employees feel that way.
And they do, and so I'm going to give some airtime to Steve here in a minute, but
okay.
But when you're growing leaders, when you're developing leaders, one of the very important things I think leaders need to internalize is that they cannot lead where there are no people. You can't lead an organization without people in it, and then people will never go they will never follow where you will not go. So it goes back to the simple axiom of, you have to lead by example. So that's a big difference between being a leader and being a boss. And you've often heard me say that I don't like the word boss because it kind of brings back memories of somebody, with a whip that is trying to hit a bull.
Right.
And so when you apply those principles to people, it just doesn't work. So, and I think you said it well, it's about understanding the different responsibilities. So you have leadership responsibilities, and they require a brand new set of skills and knowledge that perhaps a technician doesn't have.
Oh, yeah.
So a leader needs to be generally familiar with everything within the organization, to include the technical part of it, okay? But the expertise of that technical part belongs with the expert who is normally an employee.
Yes, Steve, you wanted to make a comment?
Yes, I think the greatest compliment for a leader or a manager, or however you want to describe it, is the fact that the day that I walk out of that unit, I walk out of that company, I walk out of that factory, is that the next man comes up. You know why? It's all about coaching, teaching, and mentoring.
Right.
If you keep all that stuff to yourself, keep all that knowledge to yourself, you're not helping the organization at all. And the Army's been around 235 years. The day I retired, guess what? They kept on going.
Right.
You know why? I coached, I taught, I mentored. In sports, they say the same thing. You have Tom Brady's your quarterback, right? The greatest quarterback in the world. He's out for 4 games because of Deflategate. Guess what? Next man stood up, and they drove on. They went 3-1. You fail as a leader or as a manager if the day you have to leave or go away, no one can step into your job. That's the mark of a leader. If I leave an organization knowing it's in good hands because I taught them, I coached them, I mentored them to do the right thing, then I feel good about myself. That's what a true leader is.
So Steve, let me jump in here because there's at least 2 more things I want to talk about, and I really want to talk about number 5, Joe, which is liking.
Okay.
But before we get into liking, I want to thank Command Sergeant Major Stephen Smith for his service, because he served honorably in our military for a very long time.